You can put it in. Om Jnanam Timidannasya Jnanam Janashalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Mukham Karati Vachalam Pangum Nalate Yat Kripatamaham Bhande Shri Gurum Dinaka Anchakapatirupyascha Kripasindhubhyeva Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Prabhu Nityananda Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Hare Hare. In a short few days, we're going to celebrate Narasingha Chaturdashi, the day when Lord appeared in the form of Narasingha. Sort of leading to that event, we should look at the prayers by the Prince, by Prince Prahlad. Now, I'm not sure who's who in the audience and how much or how many of you and how much are you familiar with the appearance of the Lord in the form of Narasingha Dev. So I should just quickly explain what happened there. Prahlad was a boy that was born to a demonic father, literally a demon. His father was a very, very nasty person. Hated God from the bottom of his heart. And from the beginning, he wanted to educate his son to be just like him, an intense materialist. Now, somehow or other, Prahlad, having been born a pure devotee, pure Vaishnava, pure soul, was not giving in to the education that his demonic father was providing him. And after a day's school, Hiranyakashipu, the demonic father of Prince Prahlad, would ask him, "What's the best thing you learned in school today?" And Prahlad, even though he was being instructed in politics and different forms of materialism, different ways of materialism, etc., etc., Prahlad would say things such as, "Oh, I have learned to worship Lord Vishnu, Shravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu Smaranam, Pada Sevanam, etc." And his father would become greatly agitated. And as this happened a few times in a row, in one point, his father concluded that my son cannot be changed. I shall kill him. This person was so sick. He wanted to kill his own son because his son would not become a materialist. And he attempted to kill him, but was unsuccessful by the grace of the Lord. And he tried to kill him one way, the other way, third way, fourth way, so many attempts. But Krishna always protected Prahlad, Vishnu. Always protected Prahlad. And so in this way, Prahlad was, the interesting thing in it all was that Prahlad, not only that he was physically unharmed, but even mentally he was not disturbed. Because he was completely surrendered to Krishna. Whatever Krishna wants, it shall be. So he remained peaceful. And so, anyhow, eventually, Vishnu came, appeared in his incarnation of Narasimhadev, which you're going to celebrate in few days. And he killed this demonic person. And this person was so bad that there was not a single person in the world that was feeling sorry that this person has died. He was such a bad person. Hard to imagine. Even very bad people usually have someone who loves them. Hiranyakashipu was really, really bad. Very bad person. And so, the Lord appeared in order to eliminate Hiranyakashipu, the demon. He appeared as looking almost like a monster. Human body, but the hands and the upper part of the body, including the head, that of a lion. And he was ferocious. When he roared, everyone was freezing out of fear. Penetrating roar of Lord Nrsimhadev. And in a very short time, he disposed of this demon. And then he stood there as the army of Hiranyakashipu attacked him. And he was just shredding them to pieces. It was completely it was absolutely angry. If you can imagine absolute anger. Do you know the meaning of the word absolute? Who knows the meaning of the word absolute?
Perfect. Excellent.
Excellent, complete.
Perfect.
Perfect. Total. Absolute. Absolute anger. Once I remember these two senior devotees were somewhat angry, and they were very passionately discussing how Krishna should be served, to the point that they were angry. There was so much energy between them. And I was thinking, wow, this is so intense. Had I not known that they were devotees, I would have thought they were going to fight. And I did something which might seem a bit bizarre. Namely, I didn't walk away, but I stood there witnessing the might of the intensity of their anger in Krishna's service. So the anger of Lord Narasimhadev was absolute. There is no anger greater than the anger that the Lord displayed that day. And so then, after everything was said and done, he was standing there and he was roaring. And he was still absolutely angry. And so all of the demigods who were by force made servants, slaves of this demon Hiranyakashipu. Even sadhus like Ananda Muni had to serve Hiranyakashipu. They all stood there, never have witnessed anger such as that. I didn't know what to do. So one by one, they started to offer prayers. They prayed to the Lord, they praised the Lord. But the Lord just wouldn't calm down. So in one point, Brahma was thinking, this is a trouble here. And he thought, this is Lord Narayan here, who appeared as half man, half lion. So he thought, since this is Lord Narayan, I will ask his eternal consort, Lakshmi Devi, to go and pacify him. But the Lakshmi Devi refused. Even she never saw her Lord that angry. It was fantastic anger. Anger above all angers ever before. And then Brahma was somewhat, how should I put it, desperate. So then he asked Prahlad, look Prahlad, you caused all of this. You go pacify him. I'm paraphrasing. Because Lord Vishnu appeared to protect him, and Vishnu was about to kill his own son, Prahlad. That's when the Lord appeared onto the scene to protect his devotee. And so that's why Brahma thought, well, he came here because of you. So it may work if you go and offer some prayers. And that's when Prahlad came onto the scene. Now, and at this point, little boy Prahlad, little Prince Prahlad, little saint, prince, saint, offered prayers to the Lord. And as soon as he approached Narasimhadev and offered his pranams, Narasimhadev calmed down. And then he touched him with his paw. And when he touched him, Prahlad's Bhagavatam says, whatever remnants of material desires there might have been in the heart of Prince Prahlad, they were all gone. And then Prahlad started to offer his prayers. And this is how begins the chapter of Sri Prahlad's prayers to Lord Nrsimhadev. Now it is interesting how there are many people in this world who pray. Anyone here prays? Can I see a show of hands? How many of you pray? How many of you don't? Okay, so everybody. There's a lot of people in this world who pray, really a lot. But what's interesting that that our prayers or prayers that the humans offer to God very much depend on their concept of what is God and who they are, and what is their relationship with God. Different people have different concept as to who or what God is. And different people have a different concept as to who or what they are. And depending on this, people offer varieties of prayers. Now, it is interesting how many people who pray, even though they approach God, they maintain distance between themselves and God. This is common to all religious traditions. I was born and I grew up in a Catholic Christian tradition. And I made great many trips to India, and I have seen the same thing. The great distance, not amongst everyone, but among some. And I would say quite a few, maybe even majority. Hare Krishna, welcome. The great distance between the person who prays and God. And why the distance? Well, the distance, why the distance? Because of their concept, who God is, who they are, and what is their relationship. So there is very many people, because of feeling this distance between themselves and God, they hardly ever think that they have or should have an ongoing relationship with God. So they approach God here and there, typically when they're in need of something. So the very meaning of the word prayer, to most of the people that I know, never investigated the matter in an academic way, so I don't have any numbers for your statistics. But at least speaking from my experience, most people don't have a relationship with God. Just when they find themselves in a need, that's when they approach God. And this is when they ask stuff of God. What was the year when the Twin Towers in New York were 2001, September 11th, 2001. Interesting thing, a very unfortunate incident, unpleasant for sure. But it placed a lot of people in the position of need. And for weeks afterwards, temples and mosques and churches were packed with people offering prayers to God. And then as the time went on, the numbers kept decreasing until the temples, mosques, and churches emptied out yet again. Until the next need. And so what's interesting how people, I remember first time I went to India, I was really surprised by the intensity with which people approached temples and deities and the intensity with which they prayed. But it was also great. I never seen anything like it. You never see something like that in a Christian church. As a Catholic boy, I had never seen anything like it. A pujari turns around and offers an item from the altar, and thousands of people rush towards it, even though they know they can't get it. Never seen such enthusiasm. But I was also greatly disappointed when I realized that most of those prayers were shopping lists. And these shopping lists contained all kinds of things, from small and inexpensive items to luxury items. And more noble ones contained things such as health, career, education, etc., etc. And I was thinking, well, this is the same thing like in my church. People come to God with a shopping list. And then when they get their things, then God, there's no room for God in their lives until the next need. And then when the need arises, then they go back to God and ask for things. And what's interesting, some or other, Krishna at least, according to his statements, he does not get offended by this. Even though I have to say, I would be quite annoyed if people constantly approach me just because they wanted something from me. I would think these people don't care about me, they just want stuff from me. But Krishna does not get offended, of course, because Krishna is not like me. He does not get offended, but he says these people are also great. They're not very great, but they're good because, at least in some way, even though an impure way, they approach God. And in this way, having a shopping list mentality, people actually keep a distance between themselves and God. Not understanding, again, who or what God is, and who or what they are, and what is their relationship. Very few people understand that the purpose of religion is not to provide for our material needs. The purpose of religion, what is the purpose of religion? The purpose of religion is to fulfill the purpose of life. And the purpose of life is, believe it or not, is to become a saint. Not that just saints become saints, but every single person should become a saint. And the human existence is meant for that, for achieving this goal, irrespective of what tradition you may find yourself in. The goal of human existence is to become a saint, a pure lover of God, and a pure lover of all parts and particles of God. Particles. So in the Vaishnava tradition, like in the prayers of Sri Prahlad, or in the whole story of Sri Prahlad, where Krishna appears to protect his devotee, we find the intimate, not a distant relationship between devotee and God, but rather a very intimate one. Bhagavad Gita, for example, there are not that many scriptures in the world, religious scriptures, where we see a devotee speaking with God. Krishna and Arjuna are seated on a chariot in an unusual place, battlefield. And they're having a conversation. That's very, very intimate. So in the Vaishnava scripture, we have a great deal of time and energy dedicated describing our relationship with Krishna and the intimacy of the relationship between devotee and God. As a matter of fact, there's the relationships, typical relationships between devotee and God are analyzed by Srila Rupa Goswami and divided into 5 categories. So there is the Shanta Rasa, where devotee has an intimate relationship with God, but it does not actively serve God. In other words, these are the meditators, people who meditate on God, like Sri Prahlad. Sri Prahlad, Prince Prahlad, was constantly thinking of Krishna, or Narayana, or Vasudeva. Constantly thinking. Hari Smriti, that's the verse I wanted to quote this morning, and I couldn't remember it. Now it just came. Hari Smriti Sarva, Hari Smriti Sarva, Vivi something. I can't remember the rest of the verse. But that by remembering Hari, all the trouble goes away. So Prince Prahlad always meditated on the Supreme Personality of Godhead. This is called Shanta Rasa. And above that, more intimate rasa is the rasa of Dasya, where one actively serves God. And then it gets even more intimate at that, where one literally develops parental feelings towards God. You're going to hit the floor. You may hurt yourself. For example, deity worship is a form of a parental attitude towards God, where one feeds God. Sometimes people say, why does God need you to feed him? They don't understand that God, of course, God doesn't need anyone to feed him. But this is the nature of bhakti, or love between the Lord and the devotee. So the devotee thinks, if I don't feed the Lord, he'll starve. That's not true, he will not starve. But such is the nature of this intimacy between the Lord and his devotee, where devotee takes somewhat of a superior position, becomes protective of the Lord. Oh, I forgot the Sakya, where before parental relationship, there is the friendship, like we see the 10th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam. 10th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam describes how Krishna had friends who played with him. To the point that they would sometimes ask Krishna to carry them on his shoulders. Very intimate relationship with God, or even more intimate where one becomes a parent, develops parental feelings towards God, or even more intimate is when one develops, what should we call them, amorous feelings towards God. And what's interesting, you find these elements even in Christianity, in Christian tradition. You have the concept, like in India, sometimes a woman would marry the deity, right? Anyone here knows of a woman who married a deity?
Mirabai.
Anyone from your town or village or city in India?
Ananda.
Okay, very well. Down south, okay. In Christianity, they have a similar concept where a woman would marry Jesus, would marry to Jesus and would remain like this, basically a monk, and dedicate their life to the service of the Lord. So interesting that if we read the prayers of Sri Prahlad, we will find that these prayers do not contain the space, the distance between the devotee and God. And Prahlad is not asking anything of Krishna. And interesting, in Sanskrit, a typical term for prayer is stuti. Now, prayer and stuti, these are two vastly different things. Prayer, when we say prayer, people typically conceive of a person with a shopping list coming before God. But stuti is an expression of devotion, where devotee comes before God and does not ask for anything, but actually praise the Lord. Like in the Bible also says, praise the Lord. Oh, actually it says praise ceaselessly. Anyhow, doesn't matter. Even if devotee sometimes needs some kind of protection or something, he may say that, but only at the very end. He will first express his joy about being in the presence of the Lord. There is Srila Bhakti Vinod Thakur, is one of the saints in the Gaudiya Vaishnava tradition. He lived not too long ago, just when did Bhakti Vinod Thakur passed away? Has it been 100 years since he passed away? I'm not sure when did he pass away. In the early 1900s. So it's been about 100 years that he passed away. So relatively recent saint. And in his analysis of religion is a phenomenon, not just in India, but all over the world. He noticed how people are interested in religion for different reasons. Some people are interested in religion out of lust, because they just want things. So they go to God because they want things. And then he says there are other people who engage in religion out of fear. That was another thing that first time I went to India, I noticed that people worship everyone and everything. Just to make sure. You never know who's who. Better be safe than sorry. So we worship everything. Oh, Krishna. In some ways you could say, not too bad of an attitude. It's better everything than nothing. Or maybe not, I don't know. out of fear that they may leave someone out. So Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur said that some people engage in religion out of fear. Some people fear death. Some people fear poverty. Some people fear ill health, etc., etc. And so out of fear, there's some Christian groups who go around and tell people, unless you become a Christian, you're going to go to hell and you're going to burn in hell forever. So you better become a Christian. Then people out of fear sometimes become religious. And Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur says, yes, this is religion, but this is very primitive form of religion. Very primitive form of religion. Much better form of religion is religion that's engaged in out of duty. Why out of duty? Because the duty is the beginning of love. Where the person understands, I breathe the air. Who gave the air? Who gave me the abilities? Where does the happiness come from? For all of these things, I have to thank the Lord. So in order to be just a decent person, at least out of duty, I shall say grace, or I shall say thanks to the Lord. And this way the person engages in religion. But the pinnacle of religion, and this is not understandable to a materialist, the pinnacle of religion is religion that's engaged in out of love. And if we look at the saints, irrespective of what tradition we might be speaking of, their universal, unique quality is, or was, that they actually have devotion for God. They live for that love, for that devotion, and they die for that devotion. And there is no thing they're not ready to sacrifice for the sake of that devotion. In other words, it is so good, they're ready to do anything for it. That's a saint. Conclusion of the Bhagavad Gita. How many of you have read Bhagavad Gita, if I may ask? Quite a few. Very well. How many of you have a copy of the Bhagavad Gita at home? Almost everyone. Excellent. Excuse my curiosity and thank you for cooperating. I hope I wasn't too aggressive by asking such a question. Bhagavad Gita, the conclusion of Bhagavad Gita. What's the conclusion of Bhagavad Gita? The conclusion of Bhagavad Gita is that one should act. We all act. And what's interesting, in Teachings of Lord Chaitanya, that's a book that Srila Prabhupada wrote. In that book, Srila Prabhupada says that every action is preceded by what? By an intent. Before every action there is intent. There is no action with no intent. There's intent and then there is action. And so according to the Bhagavad Gita, the perfection of religion, the perfection of consciousness, the perfection of existence is when that intent, in other words, the reason for every activity, is bhakti, or devotion to God, devotion to Krishna. And if one has not come to that platform, if that love has not developed in the heart of any person, then such a person should do what? Such a person should act out of duty, but not merely out of duty, but out of duty for the sake of love. And this is the conclusion of Bhagavad Gita, and this is the conclusion of religion. This is religious conclusion. The very story that we find in the Srimad Bhagavatam of Prince Prahlad and Hiranyakashipu is a story of devotion. Little Prahlad ever since he stated that he worships the Lord, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Lord Narayan, from the moment he said that, his father started to prosecute him. His father started to torture him. He was being thrown off of a cliff. He was being thrown into a ditch with snakes. He was being trampled over by elephants. He was administered poison. All kinds of things. This is no small thing. If you were a child, if someone even slaps you, you would go to your mommy and cry. And you would give up the activity because of which you deserve the slap. But Prahlad would not be intimidated. No matter what pressure was put on him, he would not give up his devotion to the Lord. Prahlad Ananda Swami once joked that Sri Prahlad, Prince Prahlad, never said, ever since I joined the Hare Krishna movement, they've been trying to trample over me by elephants, throw me off the cliff. I'm leaving this movement. Prahlad did not say that. As a matter of fact, even when he knew that if his father asked him again, what's the best thing you learn in school? And if he again mentions Vishnu, his father will chop off his head. And he said it anyways. Such was the devotion of Sri Prahlad, not to be imitated. There's no value in faking things. We should be genuine. Ideally, we should become like Prahlad. That's the goal. But if we're not like Prahlad, no need to imitate. And what did Krishna do? What did Lord Narayan do? Whatever trouble Prahlad found himself in, the only reason why Hiranyakashipu, the demon, was not able to execute his own son, what a crazy person, was because the Lord protected him. And then even eventually, the Lord appeared as this ferocious creature, ferocious. No one has ever seen any being so angry when the Lord appeared to protect his devotee. And so, creation after creation, not just year after year, but creation after creation, devotees worship the Lord in the form of Narasimhadev because he appeared to protect his devotee. Why do we do that? We celebrate the Bhakti, devotion. The whole of Srimad Bhagavatam speaks of nothing else but this. And so now we have Sri Prahlad offering his prayers. And I shall read to you two prayers that Prahlad offered. And these two prayers give us a clue. They demonstrate how much does God value devotion, and how much does a devotee value devotion. So if I can have your undivided attention for about 3 minutes. Ready? Ready? Prahlad says, one may possess wealth, aristocratic family, beauty, austerity, education, sensory expertise, luster, influence, physical strength, diligence, intelligence, even mystic yogic powers. But I think that even by all these qualifications, one cannot satisfy the Supreme Personality of Godhead. However, one can satisfy the Lord simply by devotional service. There is no thing that one can offer to God and and please God. Money, wealth, power, influence, nothing but devotion will. And sometimes people say, yes, I won't give money to God, I'll give my devotion. If they have devotion, they'll give money too. Let's address that point as well. And then the second shloka, just verse following this one, Prahlad continues. If a Brahmana has all 12 of the Brahminical qualifications, but is not a devotee, and is averse to the lotus feet of the Lord, he is certainly lower than a devotee who is a dog eater, but who has dedicated everything, mind, words, activities, wealth, and his very life to the Supreme Lord. Such a devotee is better than such a Brahmana, because the devotee can purify his whole family, whereas the so-called Brahmana, in a position of false prestige, cannot purify even himself. So a Brahmana without devotion causes no pleasure to the Lord. He might be learned in the Shastra, he might be performing rituals, but if he has no bhakti, he has nothing with which to please the Lord. Krishna has everything. And if I may at the end just mention the Bhagavad Gita, according to the statement of the Lord Krishna in the Bhagavad Gita, how can God be known? How can God be known? What would you answer? How can God be known? Through his devotee. Oh, that's very well. Through surrender. Only by bhakti can Bhagavan be known. Bhaktya mam abhijanati yavanyashtasmi tattvataha. Only by bhakti can I be known as I am, Krishna says. So by reading the prayers of Sri Prahlad, we come to learn much about religion. Okay. Thank you for your attention. Believe it or not, almost an hour went by. We have a few minutes. If there are perhaps any questions or comments, we can entertain them at this time.
Maharaj, this Leela happened in different Manu, right? Not in our Divya Yuga, right?
I think so.
But
which puts a lot of questions, which maybe we better discuss aside. Like the Tirthas in South India. Simhachalam. Those 9 places, right? What's the place called? Ahobilam. They claim that there was a pillar from which we all climbed up on it. Bhava's most important thing. Let there be bhakti, and these details, who cares? We'll be still climbing up there, remembering the Lord and His pure devotee. Okay, you now have to help us get over the time limit. We got 5 minutes. Yes, we have a question or a comment.
Is it the mind contaminating the soul or the senses contaminating the soul?
He's asking whether the mind or the senses are contaminating the soul. Actually, it is the other way around. It is the soul that contaminates the mind and the senses, believe it or not. Spiritual disease is of spiritual origin. Senses or sense objects or the mind are not to be blamed. When the soul has eternal freedom to turn towards or away from God. And when the soul turns, that's a spiritual freedom. That's a choice we make in the spiritual world. And the moment we make that choice, we find ourselves in the physical creation. And that's when the journey through this world begins. And then we're given the mind and the senses to facilitate our not wanting a relationship with God. And that's why in this world, much of the religion or religious people are people who keep distance between themselves and God. Most religious people keep a distance between themselves and God. They don't want God in their lives. Just here and there when they need something. And so then the mind and the senses are given to facilitate such desire. And then when the person changes their desire, okay, now I don't want this. But then the mind and the senses are already set into motion. And so then it takes some time to stop him and turn him around. But the mind and the senses, they typically follow the soul. And so in that point of, because you see, mind and senses are like a machine. And once they start rolling down the road, then they gain momentum. And it's hard to stop them and then turn them around. So that's why more of a materialist we are, more our mind and senses go in the direction of materialism with greater force. And then when we think, okay, this may not be the smartest plan ever, so I may want to change it. But then the mind and the senses are still going in that direction. Srila Prabhupada gave the example of, does anyone know, he gave it many times, example of a fan. When you unplug the fan, it still continues to spin, but it will stop. It will stop, but it's still spinning for some time after you unplug it. Even though you switched it off, it still continues to spin for a while. So no senses or sense objects or the mind is to be blamed. In religion, when we speak of controlling the senses and the mind, we refer to the senses and the mind that have gained momentum and are running in the wrong direction. So that's why we're trying to slow them down and turn them in the right direction. But first we need to want Krishna and the rest of us. Okay, we have 30 seconds to go. I shall, at this point, thank you for your attention. We value your time. We're very happy you gave your time to come to the temple. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.